It's a widely accepted fact that a lot of entrepreneurs fail. There are statistics ranging from about 50% all the way up to 90 or even 99% of entrepreneurs that fail within the first 5 years. And personally, I've been an entrepreneur for 6 years, and I just had my biggest business reach the 5 year mark back in July. And I wanted to sort of reflect back on that and think about what made that happen. And well, the reason why businesses fail is that they run out of cash. That's the only way you can fail in a business. You don't have cash. If you have cash, everything's all right. If you don't have cash, everything's not all right. And where does cash come from? Cash comes from clients, most typically. And us in the professional services industries, we need clients a lot, and we need trust from those clients. And that can be really difficult, especially in the beginning. How I started as an entrepreneur, and this is actually kind of a funny story. So I got hired to a marketing agency at 16 years old. I did graphic design, web design, stuff like that. And then that business went under about a year later. And then I looked for a job for about a year, well, a few months. And the way I did that is I made a LinkedIn profile and I started reaching out to entrepreneurs within my local area and see if they had, a need for somebody who knows how to do those aforementioned things. And I failed. So I wasn't able to get a job. I was able to increase the size of my network on LinkedIn, which proved to be a really good thing. More on that later. But I failed to get a job. So I wanted to get cash. I was already used to having a job. So I was feeling a bit of anxiety, not having any income, although, I lived with my parents and I wasn't in trouble, but I definitely wanted to get some, so to speak. So what I decided to do at 17 years old, in January, so I lost my job in like October pretty much. Then I looked for a job until December, and then in January I started my first business. And I went with the same strategy. Started contacting people that were in my local area on LinkedIn, and I changed the pitch so that I was a freelancer essentially that provided services related to graphic design, web design, and stuff like that. And then I got my first meetings from that. I also have a video, I can link it below, on how to run your first sales meeting. You can look that up if you want to. But I got that first sales meeting, and I remember I was in high school at the time, and I had a math class, and I had to ask my teacher if I can go to this client meeting in another small town, like an hour away or so. And my math teacher gave me permission to do that, so I went to the meeting by bus, and I got there. I got lost a couple of times. It was in this industrial area where I had to, despite having the bus, I had to walk like a kilometer to actually get there. And then I had a meeting. It was super, super awkward, but I got the client. I think my contract was like 30 euros an hour or something like that, which might sound like a lot, but having taxes and all of that deducted from that, it didn't amount to much. It was basically like a McDonald's type of pay with a lot more responsibility and challenges. But I did get that first client. So with that said, I wanted to give you some tips on what you should focus on to perhaps make your trip a little bit smoother. And the first relates to the price thing. So you want to start free or cheap. And this is common advice that you get from people. You want to have a pilot project, for example. You want to have the first 10 hours for free or something like that. You want to have some sort of proof of concept. But the critical thing with that not so many people talk about is you want to have a clear pathway out of that cheap or free labor. So you don't want to be there indefinitely. And this is the big mistake that a lot of people make, which is that you stay doing free gigs or gigs for visibility or cheap gigs for a long time. And that's basically out of habit and out of fear of failure. So you want to have a clear pathway, a clear exit out of that situation where you bill too little or not at all for your work. So that's the first thing. Start free or start cheap, but have a clear way out. And the way that you can do that is, for example, having a contract where the first 5 hours or 10 hours are free if you do hourly based work, or if you do project based or value based, you can do the first deliverable for free or something like that, to have that proof of concept. Because if you don't have clients, you don't have testimonials, you don't have case studies, you don't have anything like that that could prove to the client that you're actually good at what you do. You might have a portfolio, but that might not be from real life, and that might be not sufficient for the client. So you might want to be prepared for that. The second thing is the fear of failure that I already touched on. So that's one of the key things that I've learned in my small time as an entrepreneur, which is you really don't want to be afraid to fail. You want to look at every failure, every lost opportunity, every lost contract, every lost client. You want to look at all of those as learning opportunities. So you want to think about what went wrong, what you might have done better. Was it a cultural fit issue? Was it a prospecting issue, meaning that you, for example, reached out to too small or too big of a company? Was it a legal issue? Was it a skills issue? What issue was it? And then thinking about that, you can figure out a way to make the next call better. And that's what sales is all about. It's all about trial and error, figuring things out, and then finding things that work. You also want to understand that there are no lost clients. If you have a meeting that goes badly, you haven't lost it. You haven't failed permanently, because there's always the future. You can always reach out to them again. You can always reach out to them and explain how your services have changed, for example, or how you have more case studies, more proof of concept right now, stuff like that, to make the client more convinced. The fourth thing, I've lost count, but I think the fourth thing is that you want to be a great salesperson. And what makes a salesperson great, not just good, but great, is the ability to ask great questions. Think of sales as an exercise in problem solving. So what you're trying to do in sales is you're trying to figure out what the client has that bothers them, and then trying to find an effective solution to that specific pain point. And the way that you do that is not by telling. You don't want to tell the client that you have this and this issue and I can solve it and make the world a better place for you. That is good, but that's not great. So what makes the difference is the ability to ask questions. And for this, there's something, for example, called the spin selling method, which it's an acronym that stands for situation, problem, implication, and need payoff. Situation means asking questions about the client's current situation. So you might want to ask what's going on, what are you doing right now with relation to this specific issue that we're talking about, what's working for you, what's good that you've done recently, what have you accomplished, stuff like that. Then you want to move on to the problem questions. Those are, identifying pain points, what are you struggling with, what do you have not enough resources for, etc., etc. Then you have the implication questions. And these are a really critical step that a lot of people miss, which is that you want to have an understanding of what are the causes of the problems that you've identified. So, for example, if you're selling photography services and the client says that their problem is that they don't have enough good photos, a good salesperson might jump into a pitch after figuring that out and, you know, start telling them why they're the best and stuff like that, which that is good, not great. So what makes that great, how you can make that leap, is you can start asking questions about what the problems lead to. So for example, in the aforementioned case, you might ask something like, how does it affect your marketing that you don't have enough good pictures? How does it show up in your life? How long has this been going on? What if this continues going on? What are the implications? That's what the I stands for. What are the implications of this problem? By having an understanding of the implications that the client sees, you have an understanding of what they actually feel pain about, and then you can start figuring those problems out. But even before you do that, you might want to move on to the end part, which is need payoff. And that stands for, or that means that you want to have an understanding of what happens if we solve this problem. So what can we accomplish if we get those really good photographs? How can that affect our other marketing efforts and stuff like that, for example? So you really want to have an understanding of the wider situation. You don't want to have just an understanding of the current situation and the current problems. Those are questions that people ask a lot. You want to have those I and those end questions, those implication and need payoff questions, to actually get an understanding of where the client's at and what you can actually do for them. By doing these steps, you can achieve what I call the critical mass of clients, where you get beyond that risk of bankruptcy and that risk of your business failing. You don't have that risk of not having enough cash in the bank to survive the next few months. And that's really it. Business is quite simple at its core, but that does not make it easy. That just means that you have to work quite hard at it. So that critical mass of clients, getting that and getting that safety and security is really important, because when you get that ball rolling, it's much easier to keep your business going and growing as well. So that's been it. See you in the next one.